everyone, to the Rotary Club of Edina. Welcome. I'm your host, Josh Sprague, and the club president for the 2019-20 Rotary year. It's such a pleasure to have all of you with us here today. And by us, I mean not only our club members, but members of the community, here to learn more about the human trafficking issue, members of the media and press who are here to cover today's events, and of course, all of the visiting Rotarians from our greater Twin Cities Rotary family who have joined us. In fact, I'm told there are over 20 Rotary clubs represented here today. If you're from one of these great clubs, please stand and be recognized. Hey! See, I always wanted to be part of a big family. That's why I married a Catholic girl right here, Kelly Sprague. Now, for those of you who might not know exactly what Rotary is, and there are those among us, I'd like to share a quick video about our organization. Let's take a look.
Our connections make powerful things happen, uniting individuals and communities. We are Rotary. We are people of action. With over 1 million members, we know what people can do when they come together. Around the world, generations of leaders build new friendships and solve problems, turning great ideas into reality. Take action with us. Find out more at Rotary.org.
The object of Rotary is to encourage and foster the ideal of service as a basis of worthy enterprise. We channel this commitment to service through our 5 avenues of service, including club, vocational, youth, community, and international service. Today's workshop on human trafficking touches nearly all these areas of service. So I'm glad to see the great attendance today and everyone's interest in this important local and international topic. This workshop would not have happened without the hard work and dedication of our Human Trafficking Committee. So before we begin, I'd like to ask all the committee members, including co-chairs Renee Harberts and Bonnie Rolstead, to stand so that you can be recognized for your service. Thank you. And now, I'd like to thank today's volunteers who helped make this meeting possible, and invite Scott Hawkins to come to the podium and lead us in the invocation, Pledge of Allegiance, and 4-way test. Scott. We won't get stand. Please stand. About 4 inches away, 3 inches.
Please bow your heads in prayer. Almighty God, today we pray for all the brave souls working diligently on the front lines to help end human trafficking. We pray for the victims, their families, friends, and all those who give their time and support. Let us remember, if ever overwhelmed by the magnitude of this global issue, that in your name all things, however small, work together for good. Thank you for bringing us together today, and bless this food to our bodies. In your name we pray. Amen. Amen. And now for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And the 4-way test of the things we think, say, and do.
Is it true? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Thank you, Scott. Please have a seat. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Renee Harberts, who will bring us today's program. Renee joined the club in October of 2015 and was sponsored by past president Ann Platt. Renee's classification is financial planning, and she works for Hans Financial in Edina. Renee serves on our club board as a social director and is the co-chair of the Human Trafficking Committee. In April of 2019, Renee participated in our international service trip to Guatemala, where she and others delivered life-saving water filtration units to remote mountain villages near Coban. Renee is married to fellow Rotarian Dave Wendt from the Edina Morningside Club. She has 3 children and 6 grandchildren. Please help me welcome my friend and fellow Rotarian, Renee Harbers.
Well, good afternoon. Good afternoon. And welcome to each of you this afternoon as the Rotary Club of Edina presents our workshop, Taking Action to Prevent Human Sex Trafficking. Today, we will explore that issue of sex trafficking from a global perspective all the way down to what is happening right here in our local community. And then we will give you some strategies for prevention. You guys, we are so delighted that you are here today, and forgive me if I get a little emotional, it just might happen. But I am really so impressed. We have 22 Rotary clubs from around the state and our district represented here today, along with our friends, our family, and really many, many interested and concerned members of our community. So really, we are gratified that you have taken time to come to learn about what is really a very big global human rights problem. Josh kind of touched on the object of what Rotary is. For those of you that don't know, I want to say really very simply that our Rotary is about service above self. And really, all of you people that are here today are proving that service above self is alive and well in our community. Thank you. And guys, before we get into our topic itself, the workshop itself, I want to just give you a little backstory as to how we came to be here today. So probably about 2 years ago, a speaker came to our club to talk to us about Rotary's initiative to end human trafficking in Minnesota. And when that speaker came that day, he started to talk about sex trafficking. And as he talked about what happens to our children, this is the emotional part, you guys. Sorry. When he started talking about what could happen to our children if somebody hurt one of them, I visualized my grandkids. And that was the moment that I knew that I needed to get involved. And Ashton Kutcher, who has joined the cause to end sex trafficking, describes those moments as moments when you learn something about the world that you never knew before. And you can never again unknow it. And guys, I hope today that we all go home with one of those moments. So, Rotary's initiative to end human trafficking really began with 2 goals. And one was to raise awareness, and the other was to partner with local organizations, both locally and globally, to bring attention, prevention, and aid to the victims. At that point in time, clubs around the district, each president was asked to appoint 1 or 2 liaisons to represent this state initiative, and my good friend Bonnie Ralsted and I offered and volunteered to be our club's liaisons. As she and I dug farther into the issue, we really learned really quickly that it was a much bigger issue than just the 2 of us, and we needed to have a group formed. So it was out of that digging and research that the Rotary Club of Edina Human Trafficking Prevention Committee was born. And try to say that a couple times really fast. So, and at this point in time, I would like to introduce our committee members. Please stand. Bonnie Ralsted, John Barnett, Scott Hawkins and Scott Blake, and myself. Thank you. As a committee, you guys, we've attended many trainings, gone to many workshops, connected with, vetted, and supported many local organizations. And last year, our committee was very instrumental in granting our club's signature grant to the public schools of Edina for $10,000 to implement a program, Superhero Kids. Superhero Kids program is an assault, safety, and prevention program aimed to teach children how to be aware of improper sex behavior and to stop it. They are going to be on our panel today. And our panel is going to be our workshop is going to be a moderated workshop with lots of questions and answers. So please, as you guys, be prepared to join in. But before I introduce our moderator today, I really want to take time to thank three very special people. And one is our past president, San Asado, and I know San is here someplace. San allowed us to champion this cause in our club. He was the first one who said, yes, please champion this cause. So we're thankful to San. We're also very thankful to past President John Flynn, who couldn't be here today, but John Flynn believed so much in our cause that he made human trafficking become his signature project for the year. So thank you to past President John Flynn, and then of course, our president, current, Josh Sprague. So from the moment that we start to talk about human trafficking, Josh jumped right on the bandwagon. He allowed us to take over his program today and let us present this to you. And he has provided us with many ideas and much energy and much guidance every step of the way. So really, guys, without these three great people, we wouldn't be here today. So maybe a little round of applause for all three of them. And now I would like to introduce our moderator, John Barnett. John, as you know, is a member of our Human Trafficking Committee, and he is also one of our past presidents. And he currently sits as the president of the Edina Crime Prevention Fund. And as John may or may not extrapolate on, John is very much an advocate for preventing human sex trafficking both locally and internationally. John?
Thank you, Bonnie. Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for coming. If we could, I'd like to have our panelists come and be seated, if they would, please, and I'll give a couple opening remarks. Thank you for everybody for being here today and making the effort. It's a serious topic, one that needs to be told. Excuse me, and it is obviously close to my heart. So we're gonna delve into this shortly. So the way this is gonna go down is our panelists will introduce themselves. They'll take about 3 minutes, talk about their work and how it relates to what we're talking about here today. We're going to roll a short 3 to 4 minute video, and then we're going to open it up to Q&A. And our hope here is that when we're done today, when we leave, you'll have the knowledge and some tools that you can use to help make change in the footprint or area that you live in on this planet that we're running around in circles on. So I just want to say thanks again for coming, and we're going to open it up for questions. So please think as the speakers introduce themselves and what they're doing and what their expertise is. Think about things that you'd like to know. There's no questions off limits. Please, I'll be walking around the room, put your hand in the air, and I'll get to you with a mic. So let's roll the video, please.
When you're a child, the world is open to you. You are innocent. You are excited about life. You are full of energy.
We need this. We need this.
Our goal is for every child to learn how to become a superhero kid so that they can be safer when there is no responsible adult around to protect them. We've created a 35-minute program that is fun, not scary. There's nothing in it that's scary. The kids laugh and have fun all the way through it.
Superhero, pass it on. Who has Batman?
Superhero Kids training changes kids' lives by helping them recognize when they're in this groomed assault sequence.
1 out of 7 children are abused. I was 1 out of those 7. I was abused by a person who we trusted and stayed at our house overnight. It changed my life. It took my innocence away. It caused me a great deal of anxiety, depression, anger.
Groomed assaults are assaults done by people the child knows. Usually starts out with a behavior and a touch, words and a touch that feel good. Groomed assaults happen when that migrates in a continuum over a period of time to a boundary violating touch. It's very difficult for the child to talk about, and it becomes this capsule of poison that eventually leaks.
If kids don't get the help they need, these are lifelong consequences. These are kids who have difficulty with self-esteem, with mental health, with substance use, because they don't understand what's happened to them.
We boiled it down to 2 simple rules. If either rule is being broken, the child can recognize that.
No! Stop!
And when they recognize that it's happening, then we give them the proper response. Simple. Get away and tell.
Get away and tell! No! Stop!
As a pediatrician in this community for the last 20 years, I highly recommend the Superhero Kids program for its empowerment and its prevention of abuse for kids.
If a rule is being broken and you get away and tell!
I recommend this everywhere. Any institution that deals with youth, and I deal with youth on a daily basis. I feel like this is extremely important. I'm getting choked up here just talking, so it's excellent. I can't say this was extraordinary here in the room. I was blown away by the whole presentation.
You can break the cycle of pain by making sure Superhero Kids training reaches as many kids as possible. You can help break the cycle.
As Renee mentioned earlier, Edina Rotary, our Rotary Club here, wrote a $10,000 grant, and we will be teaching this program. It's a 35-minute program. Our Human Trafficking Committee went out and sat in some of these classes and watched this take place and really felt like this was something that should be told. And so I'm going to introduce Heidi Nauman, who will introduce herself and talk a little bit about your work as the Executive Director of Superhero Kids nonprofit org. Thanks.
Thank you all so much for taking the time to be here. My name's Heidi Nauman. I'm the director of the Superhero Kids Foundation. The video that you just saw is one of the programs that we support in schools. Our foundation gives grants and resources to schools for prevention programs, and the one that we provide and support the most is the Superhero Kids program, which starts at kindergarten and goes all the way up through 12th grade, and we even do college level and adult. And I have been with the foundation for about 3 years now, and I was one of the instructors that taught every age level class. So I can tell you the kids have a lot of fun in this youthful class, and we'll go into more about that. I became involved after attending my first class as an adult through the adult program, and I knew that I just had to bring this information to as many people as possible. And the program was founded by a former Navy SEAL officer, Al Horner, who is here today, sitting in the front row. Al, would you stand up and just wave at everybody? That was him in the video. He was approached by a friend in the community. Hey, you're a former Navy SEAL. Can you teach my daughter and her friends something about being safe before they go off to college? Well, who doesn't want to learn from a Navy SEAL some moves, right? Anybody here want to? So a couple weeks later, that girl who that class was set up for, there was an attempted assault with her, and she knew what to do, and she was safe, and she wasn't raped because she knew what to do. That program grew and has been going on for 14 years here in the Twin Cities, in corporations like Medtronic, Wells Fargo, Cargill, General Mills, you name it. And many of the women were asking, what do you have for my kids? What do you have for kids? And Al knew that after looking, there was no programs for kids. So he set out to create one. In over 5 years, Superhero Kids came to fruition after working with a lot of different experts in the field. And now there finally is something for prevention. And how does assault prevention relate to trafficking? Over 93% of trafficked victims had a sexual assault in their elementary years, and they never told anybody. So prevention, starting as young as possible, is where we want to be. And I'm here because I hold in my heart too many stories of people I know. And if I ask you all to bravely raise your hand if you know of anybody who's ever been sexually assaulted, raise your hand, and now take a look around the room. So when we say the numbers, 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 10 boys have experienced a sexual assault, those numbers are pretty low compared to what you just said, and compared to the fact that those are only reported numbers. So I'm here to make a big difference in the schools and reach every single child that we possibly can to teach them how to take care of themselves.
Thanks, Heidi. My name is Kenna Dick. I'm a detective with Edina Police Department, just right up here on the road. I've been with Edina Police Department for 14 and a half years. Can you guys hear me okay? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've had a lot of different, back there, now, better? I've had a lot of different roles at Edina Police Department. I obviously started off on patrol, so putting on a uniform every day and pushing around a squad car on both day and night shift. I really enjoyed that. Then a few years after that, I spent 4 years at Edina High School as a school resource officer, formerly known as like a police liaison. Everybody's familiar with that. From there, I went back to patrol, and then about 4.5 years ago, I'm in my current position that I'm at now. So I'm a permanent detective. We have rotating detectives and we have permanent detectives, and so I've been a permanent detective up there for, like I said, 4.5 years. My job there is sex crimes and child abuse related crimes. I also monitor our predatory offenders that do live in the city of Edina. In addition to my roles, my primary assignments, I also have spent time teaching DARE. Everybody knows what that is. Also as an Explorer advisor. Does anybody know what that is? Yeah, great. It's a great program. If you want to learn more about it, catch me after. Also as a crisis negotiator. So I enjoy doing things like this and reaching out and learning not only from what we have to say, but also from what you have to say. So.
I've been looking forward to meeting Heidi and Jenna on this panel today, and grateful that each of you is here. My name's Carla Marroquin, and I am the founder and director for Protect Me Project. We are a nonprofit at work in countries of origin to prevent commercial sexual exploitation. I want to say thank you in particular to this Rotary Club. You guys extended to us an international service grant. We were able to print our graphic novel that we use in the countries where we're working, Spanish speaking, and we were already distributing, I think we distributed 1,255 of them before the school year ended in June. And we've started up now in September in Ecuador is where you printed and we've distributed. Now in December, we're starting to work we're in Mexico, Guatemala, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia, Chile, Argentina, and the Dominican Republic. So we are there to get there before the trafficker. That's our mission. We do that by empowering children through body education, improving their emotional intelligence, and helping them own their human rights. So I just wanted to show one graph here that might spur some questions and interest as we go into the Q&A. This is actually a chronogram created by the Department of Justice in 2010 that describes exactly what Heidi referred to, the continuum between child sexual abuse on your left to commercial sexual exploitation on the right. And it's step by step. Now, I translated their graph into Spanish, and then a couple days ago, because we don't work in English much, I flipped it back into English. So this might not be the wording they used originally, but it begins with link love, in quotes, sex and violence. That's where the abuse begins. Where the perp, who is almost always someone the child knows, loves, and trusts, creates that linkage between what love is, sex, and abuse or violence. They violate boundaries, which Heidi referred to. We're trying to help children understand what safe boundaries are. When that linkage of love, sex, and violence steps over boundaries, which if children don't know what the boundaries are, they're unprotected. Here we go. They then experience shame. They self-identify as sex objects and lose self-esteem. This is simply preparing an individual, a human being, to be vulnerable to sexual exploitation. They're set up, and we could go into a lot of anecdotal stories about this, but the fact is, child sexual abuse prepares individuals to be sexually exploited. At that juncture, many will run away from home. If their personality type is a risk taker and they have enough self-confidence, or they're desperate enough, they will leave home, which then leaves them to suffer poverty. They lack shelter and food, and will then sell sex simply to eat. They experience or know an abuse of power because they're minors, they're children on the street and unprotected. And so an adult who has a textbook on grooming, which you referred to in the video about, and I think you call it groomed assault sequence. And it's 4 steps that every exploiter knows and uses, right? They become friends. They establish trust, it moves into a sexual relationship, and then it's abusive. And it crosses all cultural barriers. It's in every economic strata. This is what exploiters use. That child then experiences the abuse of power. They make choices based on their media consumption. Then they encounter the demand, a sex market where people are willing to pay for pornography or pay for sex acts. And where there's demand, there's going to be supply. Then they meet their trafficker. And so this is a real quick introduction of the continuum between child sexual abuse and commercial sexual exploitation. Protect Me Project, then we are working in Spanish-speaking countries to prevent the root causes. Among middle schoolers and high schoolers, then we address the media consumption, we address prostitution as an option, and porn consumption, basically. So we're work to get there before the trafficker. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's give them a hand. So, who wants to start picking their brains? Anybody got any questions? Mr. O, let me get a mic here, and I'll just come to you. Thanks.
Thanks for being here. I have a question for Carla, maybe 2 questions. I understand that John Barnett is your brother.
I was afraid that would come up.
Can you tell us a little bit about how challenging it was for you as a child to have him as your brother?
Why don't I give you
Next question.
Okay, all right. My real question, I understand that through your bio that you were a missionary for over 30 years. Can you talk about your transition towards what you're doing now with the Protect Me Project?
Right, thanks for the question. That last one.
Yeah, thanks for the last question.
Right. It's true, I was dedicated my entire career as a missionary to preparing ministers, teachers, pastors, evangelists, missionaries. And in 2008, I was moonlighting as the director of women's ministries for our district in northern Missouri. And we began raising funds for 2 ministries, one in Antwerp, Belgium, and the other here in the United States, dedicated to the exit route, to intervention, to what we then called rescue. And I did a lot of research, we did trips, we worked with them, we funded them, and I came to realize, at that time they were saying 0.02% of trafficking victims find freedom. The recidivism rate is between 9 to 11 times that they will go back to the life. And even though it sticks, even though they stay free, they'll live with lifelong trauma due to the experiences they had in slavery. And I also read a stat from the Secretary of State, United States, and they said 32% of victims imported into the United States came from Mexico, Central America, and the Caribbean. And that's when I said, you know what? No, not with my people. No con mi gente. Not on my watch. And we asked our sending committee, our missions committee, would you care if we dug into how to prevent this and focused then our efforts as missionaries on preventing? And we started a pilot project in Nicaragua, and that was in 2010. So we've been at this for 9 years.
Mike, we got a question right here.
Hi, my question is for Kenna, Egan Club, and I've got a question regarding just our communities. And I, as the beginning club champion person, co-person, talk to our police department. Can you talk to us a little bit about what is the training? Is there a statewide training? Are there initiatives for police officers? And I'm not talking about kids at this point, I'm talking about just all sex trafficking. Is there a fundamental training that occurs for the officers in our state? And is that
so there's specific post board. Post board is really who governs our training and mandates what we need to get done within the state per year to hold a license. Then there is some training that does need to be done through that. There's a Minnesota Human Trafficking Task Force, and that's throughout the BCA. And that is through, they have a bunch of different agencies kind of collaborate over there. So if you want to become a part of the task force, you can either delegate an officer there, but that task force also provides a lot of training for different departments. But it's tough to say because each department is so different in what their requirements are. So as far as a statewide initiative, I haven't really seen one big initiative to say, no, each department needs to do this. Whereas like, for instance, hotels and stuff, they each have the same statewide initiative saying, no, this training right here is a requirement. Minnesota DOT has that same exact requirement where no, all people that are out on the roads and streets that can potentially see this type of activity going on, you have to go through this type of training. So one solid, specific training throughout law enforcement in the state, no, I don't see that. So.
We should have like 3 people with mics.
This question is for Heidi. What does teaching assault prevention in the schools have to do with human trafficking?
That's an excellent question. Like I said before in my intro too, over 93% of trafficked victims had a sexual assault in their elementary years and they never told anybody about it. So we believe that teaching in schools is the place to reach kids. We can teach kids how to prevent assaults from happening in a very, very simple way, starting as young as possible, and parents need to be involved in that. So not only are we teaching the kids in the schools, we're teaching the parents. Right. Parents get sent a parent guide before and after each class. They're invited to a preview to learn about what their kids are gonna learn and how they can talk about these things without scaring kids. Because we can talk about it in a way that is not scary, in a way that's just very empowering. When the trainers are in the schools, you will hear the kids all saying, there's the superheroes, hey, get away and tell! And they're all shouting and they're happy. And there's even a pediatrician that I know that tried to talk to her daughter before she went into kindergarten about protecting herself. And she said, I had my daughter in tears. She was just a wreck and I blew it. I'm a pediatrician. And then after she came home, she went to Minnetonka Elementary School and her daughter came home and was teaching her what she learned and she felt so good. She was a superhero kid. And she said, wow, that's what I wanted her to feel. And I didn't know how to do it. So we can teach kids to be empowered. We can teach prevention as young as possible. And We can teach even in a preschool level using some safe language. 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 10 boys will experience an assault before they're 18 years old. And you know that, like you guys rose your hand, it's a health crisis. It's an epidemic when it's that many kids, and we can do something about it. And our foundation can offer grants to schools for as little as $10 to $15 per kid. I remember sending a check for $30 for my kids to go bowling on a field trip. And so for $10 for a kid to get this life-saving information, it can save their life. The consequences of an assault from a child can lead, it can anywhere from emotional issues, depression, withdrawal from people, mistrust, substance use, cutting school, anywhere from exploitation to trafficking to suicide. It just ramps up and it ramps up. PTSD, I know people that have killed themselves. It's been in the news, even with a lot of the Catholic thing with priests, and it's not just the Catholic faith, it's all around the world. Yeah. So we can teach prevention, and that's why we're here to try to get to as many kids as possible in schools. Schools already teach fire safety. If you get fire on you, what do?
Stop, drop, and roll.
If a rule is, yes, everybody know, all the kids know that because they're taught fire safety in school. They have a plan to prepare and protect themselves. They're taught lockdowns. Edina elementary schools go through 5 lockdown drills per year, tornado drills. So we can teach prevention of this, which is one in 7 kids, which is a far greater number.
Can I quick sidebar to you?
Yes.
All right, so my kids go to Minnetonka High School, and last year, about this time, there was some flyer, I can't even remember what they're called, flyer that came out, and I saw this, the superheroes kids training, and I'm like, well, this is like right up my alley, right? This is what I do. So I got a hold of Heidi, and she's like, yeah, come see this and come see what it is. And so I went, and I saw firsthand, like walking in the room, and all the kids are sitting there on the floor, and they're all squirming around like, oh no, what are we gonna be talking about, you know? But by the end of the presentation, they're all excited, they're jumping around. You see that empowerment, exactly what Heidi was talking about. And I saw it firsthand with my own kids.
And then Kenna got a hold of me and said, how can I help you bring this to Edina Public Schools? And then the Edina Rotary champions, which Edina Rotary Club champions are the model. I mean, they set the bar. So learn from them what they did when Suzanne Kutina and I left after meeting Renee and Bonnie. That's what a club champion looks like. And if you can bring this to your districts like they've done here, we can do a whole lot of good. So, sorry, that was really long.
That's all right. So we have a question from our past district governor, Irene Kelly.
So I'm appalled to hear that. I know that the hospitality industry has consistent training, but I'm appalled to hear that law enforcement doesn't. So what can we as citizens, as community members do to encourage that? That's probably to Kenna.
Good pressure. Yeah. Man, that's a tough question. I mean, the fact that we're all sitting here right now and showing this drive and interest in prevention is huge in and of itself. I know there is talk in legislation about specific mandated training, but I just think, like everything, it just takes time. There's a lot of new stuff coming up with not only trafficking, but also sex assaults, specific things that need to be done, and specifically to the victims who are dealing with that. So I don't have a good answer for that. It's probably above my pay grade, right?
You know, when we were talking before, we met last week, and we were talking about statistics locally, et cetera. Josh, can you throw those up on the screen? Some of the statistics that you had, slides that we looked at, Kenna, and just talk a little bit about what's going on.
So this is local, so this is just for Edina, and this is 2018, all right? So you look at the slide and you're like, 26 charges, that doesn't seem like a lot. Well, it really is. I mean, you're dealing with some sort of, and these are sex assault cases. These aren't necessarily dealing with juveniles, although a lot of the victims in these types of crimes are juveniles. And the perpetrators on these juveniles are, like we've talked about here, family members, and especially people that they know and who are doing the grooming. So we've had 2 sex offender registry violations, and that's specifically if they fail to register or don't update, like if they didn't update their work information or what they drive and such. And that's why we are required as a city of Edina to do these checks on people, we kind of do one step above and say, hey, no, we're going to be checking on you in addition to your probation officer, your parole officer, just to make sure everybody's safe, okay? CSC first, that's the most severe. What's CSC, right? Criminal sexual conduct. That's what we call it here in the state of Minnesota. Every state tends to call it something a little bit different, but we don't typically call it rape, what you see on the media. So CSC second, 2 cases, CSC third, fourth, and fifth. The different levels of charges depends on the age difference between the victim and the perpetrator, as well as if this might get too much information, as well as like penetration or something like that. So it's all up to that. Assist other agencies. Sometimes the crime happens outside the city or like somewhere way up north, where an agency, there's just not enough time and resources to drive to that location. So you call that location and say, hey, can you do this interview for me? Luring children, we did have one similar to kind of what you see on the TV. We do take, I think any city takes this very seriously, where if your kid's at the bus stop or walking home from school and somebody approaches your kid and says, hey, can you help me find my dog? Something similar to that, then we take that seriously. Runaway juveniles, why are the stars there? We used to issue citations, or basically like a ticket, for runaway juveniles. We do not do that anymore. There was just not enough time and resources. So now if we find a runaway juvenile, which we know here are the most at-risk youth for sex trafficking, we get the information, I'm speaking for the city of Edina. We get the information, we write a quick report, and then we send that information to Hennepin County, and then they do some follow-up specifically to that juvenile. Suspicious activity, these ones are listed as something happened, but we can't prove beyond a reasonable doubt that something that we can prove criminally. Possession of child pornography. I don't know how much you guys want me to go into this, but in a quick recap, each social media platform, Google, Yahoo, anything that you guys search on, they're responsible for monitoring what people are doing on there. So specific images of child pornography kind of have like a hashtag or a serial number. So if somebody tries to download that specific image, they have different algorithms and things set up. Well, they'll catch that serial number for the picture and then notify, look up the IP address, notify that, well, here in the BCA, they notify them first, and then we do some legal compliance and figure out where that IP address and where that subscriber is coming from. That's when we're given we call them cyber tips, and then we do further follow-up in addition to search warrants on the home. And then solicitation of a minor. And that is when people are online through these different social media platforms asking for nude photographs, doing the grooming, hey, only call me dad if you don't do this, I'm gonna tell your parents. And we've had 2 cases in the past year in regards to that.
Okay, so next question. Josh's wife.
Hi, my question is for Kenna. I'm wondering how many registered sex offenders
Do
are
we
there
have?
in Edina?
Ooh, we don't have any level 3s, and those are the most severe, or more, I should say, more likely to reoffend. Now, in actuality, recidivism rate with people who are properly treated is relatively low. We're talking like under 5%. And that can be different depending on what study that you see. We have, so levels can be not assigned, and that means that they are really at really low risk for reoffending. Then there's level 1 and level 2. We have 12 sex offenders in the city right now. I can't tell you where they live, and I don't even know how people find out about, I get so many phone calls a week, hey, I heard there's a sex offender in my neighborhood. And unless they're level 3, I can't give out any information about this. So I can tell you that we have 12 different risk levels. So, and we don't have a specific city ordinance in Edina that says you have to live so many feet away from a park, or you can't live by a school, yada, yada, yada. Some cities do, and they actually found that it's not as effective because it basically forces all these sex offenders to start living in these same areas, causing, like groupthink. All right, well, if we're all here, why not just, yeah.
Hi, Margaret Johnson. Hi, I talked to Kenna about this before, and I think I can speak for all of us in saying that, you know, Rotarians, people that are here, are people that want to do something to change whatever's happening, and this is just so terrible and awful, and so we'd love to know, like, what can we do in our own lives, day to day, and I chatted with you earlier, and I just said, I was shopping at Eden Prairie Mall one day and was leaving, and I just happened to notice two young teenage women, I should say, sitting on a bench, and there was this gentleman, older gentleman, talking to them, and I'm kind of one of those where I'll start figuring out, like, I wonder who they are, what they're talking about, and I just kind of listened just a little bit as I was walking by, and it just sounded strange. He just seemed really way interested in them, and it kind of just gave me like the heebie-jeebies, you know, where you just get that sense, like, there's something weird going on there, like, what is it? And so I kept going. I just was like, I don't know what to do. Do I go like up to them, or do I go to a security guard? And I still feel bad to this day that I just kept going, and I didn't come back to check. So I mentioned that to you, and you said that's a great point. And so I'd love it if you would just share with us, like, how can we be more aware of what we see, at a shopping mall, in an afternoon.
Absolutely. A lot of these people can meet these kids at shopping malls. They don't have anywhere to go. They don't have a safe home to go to. So where do we go? Especially during the winter, our Minnesota winters. Let's go to a shopping mall. We'll meet other kids there. We'll hang out there. That would have been a perfect example. At least stop and ID the guy. Because if it doesn't feel right, it probably isn't right. I think a perfect example of this is, do you guys remember J.C. Lee Dugard? She was kidnapped by a young age, and she spent years in captivity and had a couple kids. And I'm horrible with the names, but her perpetrator, they were out on some campus in California. And her perpetrator and then her two young kids were with. And they were stopped by a security guard. And to us just walking around campus, it would look like, oh, there's grandpa and her granddaughter and maybe two other granddaughters. And there was I actually spoke to this officer, and she said her and this other officer stopped and just talked to them. And they said something just isn't right. And she just uses this word intuition. And her intuition for that specific case is what cracked this case how many years later. So am I saying those two girls were being trafficked? Absolutely not. We wouldn't want to make you feeling worse but you just never know. So it's always, we're here. We're at the drop of a phone call. Just call us, and that's why police are there.
So when you say go and ID them, not me, but...
No, yeah, it's not safe for somebody to go, if you're not in uniform, or you can take a picture, even though the person might approach you if they see them doing that, but it wouldn't be a safe thing to confront someone.
I have a question next. Shoreview Arden Hills Rotary at this table, and we're super excited, and I want to say hello because I have been talking with you about the Superheroes Kids, so it's great. Two questions. One is, we are very interested in going to the target audience and trying to get into the school district, and I've heard this from other organizations that it's really hard to get into the school district, middle school, high school. And so for the two women on the left and right, do you have any other ideas besides grants, which is great, to give us ideas on how we can partner and get into the schools? That's my first question. My second question is, what can you share with us that's being done to the perpetrators, to the men who are doing this, and what can we do as an organization to help focus efforts there as well?
Go ahead. I don't work here in the United States, so I couldn't help.
Okay, you're addressing your first question about how to help you get into schools. I think sometimes it can be difficult to get into schools and sometimes it's not. One of the most important things they can do is to come and see the programs for themselves, and we like to offer anybody as guests who are interested, especially from school districts, to come and see for themselves. There are classes through Not Me Training is the company that has all the instructors. So Al is running the company. there are classes at every single age level, and they're welcome to come. That will get people interested because you won't believe what they will learn. It can save people's lives all the way up through it. Another thing that you can do besides granting, offering grants helps. So, like for example, the Edina Rotary offered $10,000 to the Edina Public Schools. It took some time and conversation, didn't it? It took some time to build up a conversation and a partnership to get them to realize the importance of this. Kenna was instrumental. Law enforcement believes in what we're doing. We have a lot of law enforcement partners who are really wanting us to get into the schools, so that can also help. Offering the grants, the first two things schools all want to know is, what is this program? We want to see it first, to trust it. Number two is, how are we going to pay for it? And that's where the grants come in perfectly. So we also offered a $10,000 match to the Rotary's match for Edina Public Schools so that they were able to reach double the amount of kids. That helps.
I'm going to ask Bonnie, who is our co-chair of our Human Trafficking Committee, to just address that as far as selling it to the schools, getting them to buy in for it. Part of it, I think, was just the fact that Minnetonka, you had sold Minnetonka on it. It was already in the schools. And you know, that takes a lot of work to get it there, but it's basically top-down selling, so it's like, okay, they said it, it's okay, it's safe to do, etc. Because there is a lot of questions. If you're a parent, you're going, what are they teaching my kid? It's a pretty interesting topic. It's like, whatever. So Bonnie, tell us how you guys got it through to the Edina schools.
Okay, the first thing that we actually did was contact the superintendent in Minnetonka. And he had 100% approval. Actually, the Edina Rotary president is the one who started everything. He contacted the superintendent, then he contacted the superintendent in the Edina school system. But the most important thing was the work the superheroes did, because you can't go into a school system and tell them what they need. They're professional educators. When I finally got to a point where I was going in to talk to the superintendent, I was just going in to talk about whether or not they wanted a grant and whether or not they were going to use it. That's all we were doing. We were not prescribing for the school system what they needed to teach. And Val Burke is in this room. She was instrumental in making that grant work. She works for the community ed. She's a director of community ed in Edina. And I met with the superintendent and Val, and they were, I mean, it was like a done deal. Like, okay, why are you here? Because they wanted the program. So I didn't have to sell anything, and nor would we be in that position. Superheroes should talk about the program. It's excellent. And we actually went, as John said, and watched the program so that we knew that. But you can't sell educators to tell them what they need to teach. They're trained. That's what they do for a living. So.
Thank you, Bonnie. Okay, I was concerned when we did this deal that, you know, we might not have enough questions. And right now I got a whole bunch of people looking at me like, look, knucklehead, I've raised my hand 9 times. So.
What's being done? That is a very not easy answer to give, because there's this whole algorithm with convictions. It depends on basically what we call a PSI. Do they have any criminal history? What is the PSI is the pre-sentence investigation, and it also depends on the judge. There's probably some attorneys and judges in here that could probably answer this better, but it's not like, okay, if you have a first-degree CSC criminal sexual conduct conviction and it happened with a 13-year-old, you're going to get this. It's like this huge investigation that you have to do prior to sentencing to know what they're going to get. But with sentencing with some sort of sex violation, there's always mandated treatment.
Can I say something? Yep. We print and distribute a pamphlet throughout Latin America based on research done in Oregon with child sex offenders in prison, and they created the pamphlet, and their advice is report me. So that's how you can help me the best, because I will continue offending until I can't anymore. So that's our advice. Always break the silence, always report so they can get the help they need.
I have 2 questions. First is for Kenna. I wanted to know more about the demand side. Like, both of us live in Powderhorn, so we know who are declined, what time it happens. So Edina, I was just wondering, who are declined, what time this generally happen, what if people are coming, you may have some data on it. And the second question is for everybody, is actually how to reduce the demand. What are you doing, what are you guys doing to reduce the demand, and what we as a society have to do to reduce the demand?
So as far as demand, or when?
Demand of this, this.
Where is the demand of it?
Yeah, where it is happening. Like for example, in Powderhorn, we know it is happening in Powderhorn Park. It is between 4 to 8 o'clock before the people. It is generally middle-aged white men coming from the suburb, going to the downtown, and that's happening. That is the data we know as a block leaders in Powderhorn. So similarly in Edina, do you have any statistics? Where are the places, where the recruitment happening, or where the access happening? And when I'm saying the demand of trafficking, it's increasing. We can go on talking. So I'm saying, what do we need to do as a society, as you, also to reduce the demand?
So as far as like a plot map, that you can either, like a monthly report that you can run and say, oh, we're having so many theft from autos or burglaries, and that certain bigger cities, I think you're referring to Minneapolis, the Powder, yeah, you're gonna see more of that. Within a smaller city of Edina, we can't plot that because we just simply don't have enough information in order to do that. Where do I think if you were to have me guess, and this is based on my previous experience as a law enforcement officer and in my position, I would say a lot of it's happening probably in the commercial area district, so we call it Zone 2 in law enforcement, but your Southdale, all that area, Galleria, I mean, if you drive by that, every day it's different, whether it's residential condos or shops, or it's constantly different. So that's where you're gonna find your kids looking around for something to do, but specific crime pattern from this time to this time, we don't have that information.
And your second question was, what are you doing to reduce demand? With Protect Me Project, we are addressing bullying among 6-year-olds, because bullying at 6 is the same thing that traffickers use at 18 to exploit people, right? So bullying, porn consumption. I just read an article last week from BBC. Child-on-child sexual abuse has increased 400% in Great Britain, and they've traced that directly to porn consumption or porn exposure when it's a minor. And so we hit hard from 6th graders north regarding porn consumption, what your options are, and how porn affects the brain, the addictive factor of it, which drives you then to consume more violent, younger, more deviant sex acts, which then if your partner doesn't consent to, every red light district we visited, the people who are being exploited will show you clients come to us with this on their phones, I want this. And so if someone won't willingly participate in this, someone who's a slave and doesn't have an option will. And so to address demand, we're addressing at an early age porn consumption, avoiding that. We have people go, well, I don't pay for porn, so I'm not contributing to the industry. Someone had to act to create that porn, and the further into it you get, the more the industry you're feeding. So yeah, porn consumption, bullying, online risky behaviors like sexting, camming. I could tell you stories of 12-year-olds who are trafficked because they thought it was a little vanguard, a little on the edge to be a porn star at 12. And didn't know they had an audience that reached beyond that one person who had abusively groomed them and they were in love with, but he's now selling the feed to pedophiles globally. So we're talking to children about stuff you don't want your children to know about, which is why we talk to parents first. But the average age that a child's exposed to porn today is 9. And at my age, I'm 60. I'm like, I wanted to have the talk at 12 or 13, the talk. So that's why we have healthy sexuality that we're starting from toddlerhood. So that's how we're addressing demand.
I want to follow up with that with Kenna because she has some slides on how.
Can I stand?
Yeah,
Is that okay?
Go ahead. Basically the risk factors for online with people looking at different websites and social media sites. So I want her to share that deck a little bit, and then we'll go over to you for your question.
You guys, I was on the way to drop my kids today at school, and as I was driving by bus stops, all the kids are standing next to each other looking down on their phones. They're probably talking to each other via text, but everybody's on their phone. And you were talking so much about pornography and social media. It is so much out there. If your kid has a phone, please know the password. Please know different social media platforms. These are some. I'm just going to give you a brief overview of just what's out there, okay? Chat Avenue, it's one of the oldest and popular chat rooms. If you click on it, and this one you can use in the web or an app on your phone. You can click, you can kind of see the girls chat, teen chat. A lot of people hop on these sites to talk to young kids and distribute child pornography.
Yeah.
Pal Talk, you can use this one also on a laptop or on an application on your phone. It again offers ways to transfer different files and chat in different chat rooms specifically to what people want to talk about. PTHR, anybody know what that means? Preteen hardcore, if you ever see that text, bad. Whisper, this one's strictly an application you can use as an Android or Apple device. So has anyone ever heard of this one? This one's, more popular. So you can click on like nearby, and this can track your device, or track where your location is. So let's say you're at Edina High School, right? You had a really bad day. You get on Whisper, and it's like, I had a really bad day, yada, yada, yada. So you can get some offender on there saying, there's a kid at Edina High School that had a bad day. Perfect. Let's private message them. It's that easy.
Yeah.
Scout is another social media networking and dating application. More for older people, I would say, but this one's used a lot for trying to solicit pornography and prostitution. How friendly does this look, right? Let's go to Kids Chat. It's one of the biggest Kids Chat areas that you can go to on the web. Doesn't it look like something like a kindergartner would come home with? So then you hop on a website here. I don't know if you can read this. Hello, any 13-year-old younger with camera want to go on, and it gives some specific chat room and cam to cam. So then you can have like a live cam to cam. Usually it's some sort of sexual act, and exchange those videos. So yeah, this. Just simply clicking on that. And I actually was gonna say, I was gonna do a couple live demonstrations, just quick ones, but I'm like, okay, what if something pops up and I have no control over it? It just wouldn't look very good, right? All right, this one, when you say pornography, and the whole era of DVD pornography is just, it doesn't exist anymore. You can hop on. This one, for example, Motherless. Read this. Motherless is a moral-free file host where anything legal is hosted forever. All content posted to this site is 100% user contributed. All illegal uploads will be reported. If you want to blame someone for the content on the site, blame the freaks of the world, not us. If you even click on this site, all these, and I tried to block it out, all these continuously flip with new images and videos of pornography. So your kid, your 8, 9, 6-year-old can hop on, and this is just a normal, you don't have to go in the deep dark web or anything, you can just pull this up. Kick's a big one, it's kind of like Snapchat. Does everybody know what Snapchat is? Yeah, I didn't even put that up there because I think everybody knows it, but Kick's the same one, but you can create different groups, and a lot of image sharing is done through that way, but it does, some images at times disappear. I know we're running out of time, so maybe it's kind of like just something to be aware of, but something you could, there's an application and also on the Android or Apple. Omegle, you don't even need to sign in for this. You go in, want to start chatting with strangers, you can click through until you find somebody that you want to chat with. Chat roulette, same thing. You can connect with somebody anywhere in the world and you can all of a sudden exchange some sort of pornography. One quick thing I know, what are we doing to help with demand? I actually had the opportunity to go to a training down in Stanford for a week earlier this year. And then Minneapolis has hosted the Final Four. What else? Super Bowl. We had that, another golf, what's it called? Golf. So we're at a country club right now. So they sent me down and I learned how to chat as a young girl. So then, combined with the Minnesota Human Trafficking Task Force, I got to be a part of the latest one in for the Final Four. And if you look online, we were part of 58 arrests. So there was like, we were at the BCA, we were in a big room, bunch of chatters. Some of us were posing as young girls, hey, come meet me. Some of us were posting as young girls, saying, hey, I'm gonna sell myself. Others were pimps trying to sell young girls. So everybody's in the room collaborating with a bunch of crime analysts, and then we'd stage them to an area and make the arrest. It was a really fun and rewarding experience. So I will, speaking of long-winded, I will hand them the microwave.
I wanted to piggyback on what you were saying about parent education. I thank you, Al, for what you're doing and what you guys are doing in schools. I appreciate this program so much. I am the mother of twin 10-year-old boys that were trafficked by our nanny at 2 for about a year. And I am wondering what you're doing and how your program reaches parents of this very vulnerable age. Because I do believe they are the most vulnerable.
What programs are your,
I'm so sorry for what your children experienced. And we're all dedicated to preventing that. I think education, nanny exploitation is so common. Hospitals, I'm sorry, pediatric wards where photographs are taken of patients. Parents need to be aware of everything Jenna told us that's online. It's virtual and it's also real. So education, and every one of you is an educator. You can't unlearn what you heard today. And with the internet available to you, you have no excuse for not accumulating knowledge and not acquiring tools. And the only, I guess I'll quit there. But yeah, we can do something, and today's the day to do it, not to wait any longer. We said, as Protect Me Project, if you can find the tool that's available closest to you at the least amount of risk, low cost, and highest probability for healthy outcomes, use it. And that's what we're doing. It isn't rocket science. Become educated, use your voice, speak up, protect your own, and then extend your sphere of influence. It can be done.
I just wanted to say thank you for sharing that. I know so many people in this room saying, no, that, you know, it doesn't happen around here. Or, you know, we're in Edina, and thank you for sharing that, because anybody can have something like this happen to them.
Yeah. Just to piggyback on that too, it's never too early to start talking about it. Parents can get on the Not Me website. There's a video on there that they can watch the training themselves and learn a language of safety that will take them through years and years. It's a very inexpensive video right online. Other states, other countries, any age can watch it and learn, and just reach out and learn as much as possibly we can, and make sure that all the schools are teaching what they need to be. It used to be we taught good touch, bad touch. What the heck does that even mean? Can a good person do a bad touch? Can a bad person do a good touch? It makes no sense. So we need to teach a language from as early on as possible, and really talking to our kids and listening. So I know that there's a lot of hands, and John is somewhere.
I've got the microphone.
Okay.
Watch out. I'll try to make it short. I don't even know if it's a response. My name is Jim Nelson from the Minneapolis City of Lakes, And one of the points of access for sexual abuse of kids has always been organizations, whether it's the churches,
Yes.
Schools, Boy Scouts, campfire, whatever. But there's one other organization, a lot of whose clubs are very deeply involved in kids, and that would be Rotary clubs. And I'm very concerned that some of our clubs don't have good policies in place on dealing with kids, especially dealing with kids on a one-on-one basis. And I've been arguing this for a long time, and we haven't made much progress on this, but clubs ought to be thinking about that.
Right.
Because, and final thing, if you don't think a Rotarian is capable of that, come and see me privately, because I've got some stories for you.
I'm Doug Drake, and I'm a orthopedic surgeon. When I was in San Francisco as a resident, we were told there were 18,000 heroin addicts and 18,000 prostitutes in the city alone, which must be astronomically higher now. What are we doing in Edina to break that from our schools? Because kids are vaping, and it isn't just Juul cigarettes that go into some of that. And once that goes on, it gets worse and worse. And now, the school's point and the police department's point, prevent that with our kids.
Specifically, drugs or like drugs and prostitution, I think.
Just take the human trafficking side of that, let's say relevant to the workshop, but is there any prevention going on other than we've talked about earlier?
I can speak for, the Superhero Kids program starts in kindergarten, but it goes all the way through high school. And as the ages ramp up, it meets them where they are in their life, and we do start talking about it more. One of the #1 things that kids are taught is, when they're young, we call it the feelings rule. And it's teaching them how to hone into that feeling when something's not right. I'm uncomfortable, something feels weird, something feels off, I'm embarrassed, this is confusing. It teaches them how to hone into that feeling and what to do about it. You get away from things that make you feel uncomfortable. You get away from it, you get separation from it, and you talk to a trusted adult about it. Later, as they get older, we talk about the creep meter. We call it a creep meter. When your creep meter goes off and you feel creepy inside, something's not right. That also relates to everything that they will encounter. And we talk to the kids, especially in the middle schools, about, starting in 4th grade, what do you do when somebody hands you a little gummy bear and said, try this, it tastes really good, it'll make you feel good. Trust me, I got it from my brother, or trust me, I got it from my parents' cabinet in the bathroom, it's okay, trust me. Does your creep meter go off? You learn to trust that creep meter in all kinds of situations, whether it's somebody that you meet walking down the street coming towards you, whether it's try this vape pen, see how it makes you feel. Trusting that feeling that you have inside you to get away from danger, whether it's assault or whether it's drugs or bullying. That's a really important thing to learn, to teaching kids how to get away. So the older programs, we definitely teach that all the way through social media, stranger, drugs and alcohol, keeping away from it. So it does kind of go. Al, you look like you were going to say something.
Can I just make one comment?
Over here.
Hi, Rashini Rajkumar, thanks for the great information. I have a question for you, but first I want to give a tip in connection to some of the angst I know that is here. You all are so powerful, and a big way to get this message across and to help these professionals is to go to the media. And all local media wants to hear from their readers and listeners and viewers, and there's nothing like a raging parent to get media's attention. So if you are willing to share your story, and I know it's very painful for some, or you have a friend who can help share your story, that real person perspective is something that every TV reporter, radio host, radio reporter, print reporter, online reporter, blogger wants to hear from. And drop me an email, I'm happy to give you some names, but literally if you live near one, know one, read one, follow one on social media, they want to hear from you. So take the angst today and go to your local media. And there's always a hook that they need, but these people have given you 2,000 hooks that the media will be attracted to. So that's my big tip. My question is, we always hear that current abusers will probably abuse themselves. So how do the ones under treatment who are probably abused themselves, what are they getting to go back into society?
I can't speak to
I
specific.
can't either. We're in prevention, so
Yeah.
don't.
I think all of us agreed we're in prevention, so we can't speak to that therapy side. But breaking the cycle at the beginning is one of the most important things as early on as possible, breaking that cycle of abuse, starting as young as possible.
Heidi, that segues into what I want.
Al, here you go.
Can I make one? Just one, I've been working this deal for 15 years, started out with women, they wanted to know how to help their kids. I looked around for trying to something to tell parents, go here, this will help you, help your kids be safer. I couldn't find anywhere in America. It was short, fun, and effective. Gotta be short attention spans with kids. Gotta be fun, or they'll choose not to go. And effective is, did you teach them something that actually made a difference? Let me help you with something. There's several questions about stopping the behavior of men, about prevention. How does this whole thing start? This whole thing starts with a child and a parent and an adult. I'm oversimplifying to get this done quickly, right? The typical scenario is there's a child and there's an adult. 90% of the time or more, the adult is someone the child knows and trusts, okay? How do you help the child recognize, stop, and prevent recurrence of whatever it is that's troubling them? It's the superhero kids training for pre-K through 4, and it's the not me training after that. But what about the jerk that's doing it? And I say jerk, maybe that has gender, but it's mostly men, very honestly. Women do it, but it's mostly men. What do you do about him? And there are, as I was putting this thing together, John School, convicted guys who buy sex in some municipalities are forced to go to John School. When you talk to the guys that go to John School and say, what'd you get out of that? The thing that was most powerful at changing their behavior was when they heard the consequences of a woman or a child being in the life or being victimized, what it did to them. They get beaten, they get abused, they do alcohol and drugs just to live with it. They have children. The pimps and the guys who manage them threaten their children to get them to perform tonight. I mean, it's horrible. The guys who went to John School say, when I realized the downstream consequences of what I thought was just a simple commercial transaction. I want sex, she wants 20 bucks or 100 bucks or whatever the price tag is. That's just a business deal. She's getting what she wants, money. I'm getting what I want, which is sex. What's wrong with that? That's just a deal. But when they understand the downstream consequences of supporting that lifestyle, facilitating that behavior, and how it ruins lives, it reaches them, it touches them. We incorporate that in the boys and fathers training, or the men's training we do at Not Me, in a segment where we give them a bunch of information, and then there's a part where we read them quotes. One of these lovely ladies on our team will, in a feminine voice, read quotes from victims. And the quotes will tear your heart out. It's so powerful for a man to hear a woman talk about something that happened 20 years ago that now impacts her relationship with her husband. Things they can't do together because that jerk did it. And now it's affecting her life forever. One young woman in college was raped brutally by 2 guys that had been drinking beer. Now, she's a 50-year-old vice president at a bank. Every time she smells beer, it takes her back to that uncontrollably. She has to leave where she is.
Decompress.
Get alone and deal with it. And so I'm sorry. So what I'm trying to tell you here is there is a way to prevent some portion of the men who are inclined to do this from doing it because they think of it as just a commercial transaction. She needs sex, she needs money, I want sex, here's 100 bucks, let's do this, and that's all there is to it. That's baloney. What you're doing is facilitating a continuing cycle that destroys people's lives.
So there is a way to help, and it's when you reach inside these guys' hearts, who when they think it's just a commercial transaction, they don't understand what they're nurturing, what they're facilitating, right? You reach in their hearts, you let them hear these quotes, you let them experience what this means in the lives of these children and these women, and it goes from being just a, she wants money, I want sex, that's all there is to it, to being something that touches them deep inside. And we've heard comments from mothers after we do high school fathers and sons classes, and the moms say, you would not believe, I could not believe what I heard my son and his buddies talking about how this changed the nature of their relationship with women. Okay, I'll shut up.
Thank you, Al. Thanks for everyone for listening and participating. I feel we could go on for another hour or so. We have so many questions, but thank you for dedicating your lives to this important cause, and we have some gifts here for you. But before we leave, I want to say something quickly about Rotary. So Rotary is a global network of 1.2 million neighbors, friends, leaders, and problem solvers who see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting changes across the globe, in our communities, and in ourselves. From literacy and peace to water and health, and now human trafficking, we are always working to better our world, and we stay committed to the end. In honor of your participation today, we will make a donation to Rotary's official disaster relief partner, Shelter Box, which provides emergency shelter to families devastated by natural disaster and conflict around the world. So thank you.
Thank you.
Before we end, I'd just like to draw your attention to a handout that you have on your table. Many of the questions we just heard are discussed in this handout that have to, what can I do, okay? We are a people of action, that's why you're here today. And so we knew that talking about awareness, especially with this group, was just not enough. You're already aware or you wouldn't be here. Okay, you're going to be teaching awareness within your club, but what are some of the things that you want to do as far as taking action? And you'll see when you talk about human trafficking and the red flags, in this handout that's on your table, it talks about some of the steps you should and should not take to keep yourself from being in danger during that time. And then you see other things related to your family. What kinds of things can we do? And I think that if we look at them, we see the word communicate over and over. You've heard it. We don't believe in secrets. We teach children and superheroes, there's no such thing as a secret. All secrets are shared with somebody. And I think as long as that message gets told and retold, and as long as we support our children so they know that they have a dependable adult, or I think they talk about 3 adults that you can depend on with the kind of news that you need to share. Children need to share this information so they don't take on the shame of something they don't understand, they didn't want, they're in a situation they're out of control in because they're vulnerable. So here we are, we're Rotarians, we're capable, we have the resources that we need, so let's take the next step. What is your next step going to be? Thank you for coming today.
Next week, our speaker will be Dr. Willie Menendez and Dr. Sofia Posadas, who are flying in all the way from Guatemala to be with us. You won't want to miss this special event as they talk about the largest pediatric center in Guatemala. Remember to be here 10 minutes earlier than usual as we will start the program at 12:25. And here is a quick video message from the doctors.
Dear friends from Edina Rotary, this is Willie and Sofia Menendez. We are very excited about our visit next week.
We are very happy to meet you all. It's important for us to meet you, give you all a big hug, and show our gratitude. Let's become friends and make huge changes.
We all Rotarians fight and make huge effort to make a better world.
We believe you all make honor to this phrase, service above self. Thank you for everything, and see you soon.
And don't forget to save the date for the biggest party of the year, our annual fundraiser and gala on October 5th at the DoubleTree Hotel in Bloomington. As we close today's meeting, I'd like to share a quote from Nelson Mandela. anti-apartheid revolutionary, political leader, and philanthropist. Nelson said, "There can be no keener revelation of a society's soul than the way in which it treats its children." And that's why the issue is so important. We have to take action, real action, to protect our children. All of our children, including those who may have lost their way in society from the scourge and destruction of human trafficking. To our panelists and to all our guests and visitors, I want to thank you so very much, all of you, for joining us here at today's conference. And I hope you leave here with some tools to tackle this issue in your own communities. As you go about your week, remember that together we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities, and in ourselves, as Rotary pursues its mission to connect the world in meaningful ways. Meeting adjourned.